Hi, this is a little video to show you how you might choose your parameters for handlers in LiveCode and how you might decide what type of parameters they should be. Suppose I have a problem where I want to get a valid age from somebody and I want to get a valid group number from that same person and I want to get a valid score from the person. And the age has to be, say, within the range 12 to 18 inclusive. The group number needs to be between 1 and 5 inclusive, and the score needs to be between 50 and 75 inclusive. So I recognise that I have a very similar idea going on for each of these three events. And I recognise that for the age, I'll need to pass over the string age so that I can prompt the user to enter the age. I'll need to pass over the actual variable age so that they can put the valid age into it. I'll need to pass over the 12 and the 18 because that's our lower and our upper bounds. And I think I'm going to, just to make it slightly more interesting, I'm going to put in a variable called failed attempts, which is going to track how many attempts I made in order to put in valid data, so that I can call this handler called getValid, and it's got 5 parameters, 2, 3, 4, 5 parameters. I'm now going to use the same code for the group number, so I'm going to have to send the string group number so that we can prompt the user to enter a group number, but I'll also need to send over the variable so that I can get the new value put into there. I need to send over, keeping it consistent with this, the lower and the upper bound, and I'll go on tracking how many failed attempts there have been. And lastly, we're going to get a score. I'm going to use the same code again, my handler called getValid, and I'm going to pass over the string so that I can prompt and the actual variable to put the valid value into, the valid score. I'll need to pass over the lower bound, the upper bound, and this failed attempts. And when I've got all that information, I'm going to put that, so I'm just concatenating all of these. I'm going to put that into the field over here that I call display, just so I can see that the results work. Now, what I need to do is, it's giving me a problem there, see what, right. So on the card, this is where I'm going to put the handler called getValid. And if you remember, there were 5 parameters. The first one was the string age or group number or score. So I'm just going to put S for string. And then the next was the actual variable that we want to put the value into. So within the handler, I'm just going to call it V. And then I had the lower bound value and the upper bound value. Oops. And the last thing was the number of failed attempts. So I'm going to call that F, and it's giving me an error here because I need to actually ask the question. So I'm going to say, please enter your, and I'm going to concatenate the variable that came in, this string that came in, and I'll just put a colon afterwards so you can see that happening. So I'll say, please enter your age or group number or score. If the results cancel, then exit to top, and I'm going to put whatever they type in into, now I want to check its validity, so I'm going to just put it into a sort of temporary holding place, and I'm going to keep asking them to enter data until my temporary value is, now it was inclusive, so I'm going to use greater than or equal to, until it is in fact more than or equal to the lower bound, and my temporary value is less than or equal to my upper bound. So just sort of standard validation here. So if I've arrived in this loop, it must be because I've failed to enter a valid value. So I'm going to add one to F. If you remember, F was my failed attempts. And then I'm going to tell them that they've made an error. And then I'm just going to repeat this code and ask them to enter another value in. So I'll just stick that in there. And if I manage to get around this and actually drop out to here, I must have a valid value in temp. It must now be between the lower and upper bound, and I can put temp into v, which is my value. So the only thing I think I might do is I have a local variable here, temp, which I'm going to declare local to this handler. And you'll notice that I have now a piece of code that's completely closed, in that these parameters here are considered local to the handler, and this I've declared locally. So S, temp, lower bound, upper bound, F, S, V, they're all local to this handler, so it's completely independent of the rest of the software. I could put it into my library of user-defined modules, and as long as I make sure that I've made it clear how many parameters and what they are and what type they are, then anybody will be able to use these, and none of these parameters or variables will interfere with any other part of the software. So let's see if it works. Let's go back to our button, and I think before I get going, I'm just going to, sorry, this is a bit clunky, but I'm going to put 0 into my failed attempts just to make sure it starts off correctly. So let's just see if we get some valid data. So this is the first call where I call getValid, and it's asking me for my age. And let's see, well, let's just check it actually puts the data in the field at the end. So I'll put in a valid age, I'll put 14, I'll put in a valid group number, and I'll put in a valid score. And you'll notice that all I see is 0. I don't appear to be getting any of these variables, the values at all. I think what I'm seeing is what's in failed attempts, which is the 0 here. And the reason for that is that if you look back at the actual handler, you need to decide whether the parameters have data flow that's just in, i.e. they're just being used, or whether the data flow needs to be in out, i.e. you actually want to see the value being passed back out. So going through them one by one, S, well, it's just being used. It's just being used to prompt the user. So that can stay as data flow in or call by value. The V, well, that actually gets the valid value put into it. So we do need that to travel out of the handler back to the button so that we can see the resulting valid value. So I need to put an @ sign here, and as soon as I do that, that makes this parameter call by reference, so that this name here, V, actually refers to the same storage location that is being passed. So the V, let's just separate these out a bit. S corresponded to age, we were just using it. The V corresponds to this, and by putting the @ sign in, we're saying that V and age refer to the same location, so that anything I put into V is also put into age. Lower bound, well, it's just being used for the validation, as is upper bound. F, well, I'm altering F every time I make an error, so I do want the value of F to be seen outside. So I want the data flow to be in, out, and I want F to refer to this parameter failed attempts, so I need it to be call by reference. So we have call by value, call by reference, call by value, call by value, call by reference. And in terms of the data flow, we have in, out, in, and in, out. So let's just see if it works. Please enter your age. Well, let's do some invalid data so we can test failed attempts. So I'm going to put in 10. That was one failed attempt. Let's do, can't remember, 19. That's another one. 2 failed attempts. That's 3 failed attempts. 4 failed attempts. Group number. And let's do a score. We'll do 49. That's a failed attempt. That's 5, I think. And let's do 67. So I should see. There we go. So we've got 14 for our age. This is what we're displaying, our age. 3 for our group number. 67 for our score. And 5 failed attempts in putting the data in. So that's the end of a little video just to talk to you about parameters, different types of parameters in LiveCode. Thanks for watching.